How many, anyone under 50 who's written two? Two. Okay? So if you take that, a good man, but never challenged in anything, using symbolism and language to charm people, comes to the White House and has a decision to make. Benghazi is on fire, Americans are being shot. We have or have not drones in the air. I don't know. I would assume yes. I also would assume that we're going to be told a different story down the road. Someone had to make a decision. But if you're always the person who waits and never has to make a decision, I'll tell you one thing. All right, let's take it locally. Mike Madigan. For all my criticism of Michael Madigan, and he deserves plenty of it, you don't think Mike Madigan can make a decision like this, one way or the other? Because he was trained in fire all his life. Okay? I could pick up many Democrats or Republicans. Mitt Romney, who knows? Let's assume because he has to live in business, okay, and perform. He didn't perform in rhetoric. This is a president of rhetoric, and a president of the time that we needed, or the country thought as an organic system that we needed this cleansing. So he cleansed us. Now, let's see. Yes, sir.
Yes, Turkish Consul General.
Of course, Mr. Consul General, welcome, and
Thank you.
nice to see you again, sir.
Thank you. In fact, my question will be a much more general one about
I would assume so.
this general election. So, I served in an international organization, and one of the main tasks was to, to check the democratic credentials of the elections.
Mm-hmm.
So, two basic things: right to vote and right to be elected. When we look at the right to be elected side, everything seems to be fine. But America is one of those, and when I was in that organization, America was one of those ardent, promoters of right to vote as well. And
Right.
when we had something around 70% turnout, U.S. government was one of the first ones to come up and criticize that it is a low turnout for
In the United States or
no,
in
not,
other
not
countries?
in the United States, but in other newly independent countries.
Uh-huh.
So how do you approach which is not very much, let's say, pronounced in this country, the turnout to the elections, and what's your take about this low rate about the right to vote here?
I think that the establishment would very much like to keep it low. The lower turnout you can control, and also manipulate into our tribal systems that we talked about earlier. I'm a Democrat, you're Republican, blah, 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 right? So we can keep control. The Republic was not, remember, our Senate historically was selected by the state legislature when we were truly a republic. I don't know what we are now. I would like to think we are a republic. Sometimes I wonder, because your comment goes into another one, which is, when do we reach the tipping point? When can 51% of the people take from the 49? When can we take resources and whatever we want? And in a way, it's sort of like the old-time Chicago political machines, or those who have adopted those, some of those tactics in other countries, understand that there must be a brokering of the passions and the result and the delivery to the people. But you can't actually take, you can't just hijack resources, and that's, I think, a problem. And I see that's what Romney, in a sense, I guess, in a sort of inarticulate way, was trying to talk about with the 47%. I don't know. The long term for the future is frightening. People know more about Kim Kardashian's views than they do Dorothy Rabinowitz's views. This is astounding and frightening. The tweeting thing, I tweet now. They want me to tweet. And I find I've been accused for many years of oversimplifying arguments, and now it's really oversimplified. And as we do that, as we think in smaller parentheticals, over a long period of time, I think the manipulation of groups will be even easier. These are questions for people who are actual intellectuals, not someone like me, but I would think that ultimately the frightening thing is closing down the debate into a few words, making things extremely simple and slogan-like, and tweeting sort of like a demos, you know? Everyone throws their stone and makes a decision. It's not a very, I should not talk like this in public because I still believe. Yes?
I think you said recently you were in both Greece and Turkey.
Yes, I was.
Would love to get your impressions. You know, obviously Greece has been in the news a lot because of the economy.
Yes.
Turkey also because of its relationship with Syria and political, political trends within Turkey itself and its role in the greater Middle East. Just can you share impressionistically what you saw and what you thought?
I was very worried, or not worried. I had trepidation about going. My editor, Jerry Kern, who has spoken to this forum, wanted me to go. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm a Chicago reporter. I would go to Turkey. I would play the role of the foreign correspondent. It would be, I would embarrass myself. And he said, no, go. I want you to go. And I'm so glad I did. What did I see in Greece? The homeland of my family. I identify in my column as an American of Greek descent. Okay? And I would like it for every other ethnic group to identify if you're an American first of whatever descent. That's only my prejudice. I don't believe in dual citizenship. I don't like it. I want citizenship America first. And that said, we can't ever give away our heart that we learn, the stories around our tables and our Sunday. My father and grandfather survived the Greek Civil War, the war with the in Albania, Italy, Greece, Italy and Germany. And then they were given a mule. Did I ever tell you this story with the mule? The Marshall Plan, the mule came. They came down to get the mule. And the mule was long-legged and black. And Papu, my grandfather, said, no, I don't like this mule, because our fields are different on the side of the hill. This is a stupid mule. So he traded it for a short-legged white mule with a big head that bit people. And you know what they named him? Truman. So in Greece, I got to see the place where I'd been there before. And I was in the Greek merchant service. Actually, that's what I wanted to do for my career before I became ill. I was ill on grain dust. If you cannot handle grain dust, you can't be a captain of a merchant ship. So I had to change careers. In Greece, the social fabric, the social order will break down. It's already breaking down. There is a right-wing group called Golden Dawn, and they have their Hitler, whatever, the ridiculous, right? The Nazis starved Athens, and the Germans killed more Greeks than maybe many other countries, and they starved them to death, so that women would leave their children on the street and wander away. And for these idiots to be doing a Hitler salute, I would like to lose all objectivity. And I'm sorry, it's my gut feeling. But as an analyst, you can see why. The social order breaks down, resources are scarce. Germany has had a history in Greece, right? Never made reparations to Greece like they did to others. And then the Greeks, what did they do? They played like Illinois politicians or like American politicians. Spend, 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 nothing coming back. Well, guess what? The bill comes due. And that's what we're seeing. That's why Jerry sent me, and that's why I wanted to go. To tell the American people, this is gonna happen here, wake up. Then we go to Turkey. They had their banking crisis, as some of you know. They changed things. They freed up the Anatolian business community, started for many, many years before, obviously, was allowed to get into the economy of the country and see the dynamic change, right? Before 5, 6 families from Istanbul versus an opening of people. So I see a completely different scenario there, and the people were happy, walking straight up. You could see when people walk like this in the street, and people walk like this, right across the sea. Very different. I can't tell. I've never thought of going to Turkey. I went with my friend Hilmi. We had a great time. I never thought of it. I had grown up as a boy in Chicago. On March 25th, would put on my fustanella, which is the white skirt that Americans make fun of. Each fold, there's 400 pleats for the 400 years of domination of the Turks. So we would speak in pageantry, and we would say the poems that our parents taught us, just like my Turkish friends must have had their poems about things that the Byzantines and others did to them. And when I went there, I realized how much in common all of the Mediterranean, the Levant, were all so very much alike. It's astounding. And I don't think Americans understand that at all. So it was a great time. The food was excellent, better, off the record, better than Greece. And we went, there was a place, I could just gain another 60 pounds. What happened in the trip though, I had quit smoking.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I had quit smoking finally. And then Jerry said, and you're gonna keep quitting smoking, right? And I said, well, let's see. There are many groups that I spoke to there, okay? Armenians, Kurds, Greeks, Turks, and others. You think you cannot smoke in this? I don't know how you guys do it. I was back in 5 seconds, smoking. But I think that it was a great trip, and I want to make others. I want to go to Israel. I want to go to.
We'll take you.
Thank you. I'll go. As long as it's not during my son's soccer season. That's the only time.
And then you gotta change your pig roast every year.
Oh, we'll do lamb, definitely, because as you know,
A brisket.
as I tell Rahm Emanuel, without the Jews and the Greeks, there's no Christianity, right?
You know what?
No Christianity.
Yeah.
Think of it. That's because of I could go back to 300 Spartans. It's a long story. You all know it. Any other questions? I hope you have more questions. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I want to thank wonderful Sharif. I'm going to give him a hug in front of everyone later, because when our consulate had the problem that it did, he sent me a lovely 2-page letter saying this is not all of our beliefs. And it was very encouraging, because I had just the week before gone to the Harold Washington Library. Gosh, it should have been there, because the head of the Islamic, whatever it is, in Belgium, he spoke, and he teaches at Columbia in New York. You must know my name, Sharif. Okay, you know. And they were not very friendly. I was the only Jew there, of course. And the only time I've ever been scared in the Harold Washington Library.
You were
They
scared.
were very, very nasty to me. But I had an article from the Federation newspaper about, we got 22 Arab nations, and they all want change. But elections should be the last thing. We didn't elect George Washington until 12 years after the democracy. So let's look at Egypt and blah, blah, blah.
You know what I would say to that? That's above my pay grade, man.
That's above your what?
That's above my pay grade.
Oh, well, I'll send you the article. But in any event, yesterday I was at Anshianet, Ram Stomping Grounds.
Right.
And they had an Israeli author, and he was saying, and afterwards I corrected them because I want to ask Sharif if I can share his email, that we don't have friends in the Arab world, so to speak. And Sharif, with your permission, I will have these people, because we need all the friends we can get. And when we had an Egyptian lawyer here, tenured at DePaul, here 50 years, I asked, what about the peace when Mubarak was being overthrown? He said, well, we may not like you. I said, that's okay, nobody likes us, just let us live, don't kill us. So he said, but the peace is guaranteed. So no one knows. Also, I have read your columns continually about your trip to Greece.
Mm.
And of course you were schoolmates with Daley, and how you liked him until
Not really. He's actually, even though I'm only 25 years old, it's the 4 columns a
me
week.
too.
No, he's rather somewhat older.
Yeah,
But he speaks, I hear now that he's fluent in Chinese and Russian, so
well, they took him
he's
at,
done something.
they took him at Cat and Muchin. I worked for Alan Muchin.
Okay.
Yes, because Daley has been to China about 7, 8
Oh,
times.
that's it, right.
And he rode a bicycle there. How he didn't fall off, maybe they put training wheels. But they have
Did
pictures
he
all
ride
over
that
the
through-
country
did he
of
learn-
him on the bicycle.
I hear he learned in Chinatown how to ride a bike.
Really? So in any event, he,
For
they
those of you
love
who
him in
understand the
China,
joke.
and Cat Muchin wants the Chinese business.
Wonderful.
They don't want him because he's smart, because smart he ain't.
And, excuse me, anyone else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
You spoke about the tribes.
Republican, Democrat, whatever, right?
It also seems to me to be very troubling with this religious divide and how it's impacting this particular.
What religious divide? There's Greeks and heretics. That's all. No, please, go on, please. No, as you were saying. I'm just joking. Right, okay, of course.
The conservative, Billy Graham had a whole full-page ad in the New York Times yesterday, telling people to vote biblical values. Well, that's pretty extreme in my view, and it seems to be impinging upon a lot
Although
on our politics.
I can understand that position, but I hope you can understand mine. And I don't, I saw an ad for Obama with a young woman, 15 years old. And she is talking about voting for the first time. But she's talking about a man for the first time. And the commercial is explicit, or let's put it this way, it is explicitly implied that that a young woman should choose for her first time the right man. Have you seen this video? Now, I'm a conservative and a Christian and Orthodox Christian, which makes me more like the old, when I see the Protestants, I'm like, come on, how could you be considered conservative, right? I mean, I'm joking, but when I see, so I try to restrain the passion, okay? Because I think we're in a secular world, right? On the other hand, when I see that, right, I think we should point out, my own belief, we should point out, from the left, they should say, I would hope they would say, this is not right. Because we identify then with a rigidly, almost militantly secular view that's antithetical to Christians, Muslims, Indians, Chinese family, rich religious people. And that has not had as much, my friends on the left would not even think of it, to even comment on it. They would not see it as an insult or a threat. But if I were the father, I'm the father of 2 boys, and I am traditional enough to know that if I were the father of two girls and I saw this video, I would throw the TV out the window. I mean, to me, it was offensive. But I understand your point. I do. And I also find sometimes militant secularism, as we've seen in other countries, can create the opposite effect of what the secularists want. I think we have to understand that fundamentally, religious people don't want to hurt others, but want to worship in their own way. And to get in their face and have the government get in their face, I think creates problems with me. I hope I didn't offend you. I really, seriously, I'm trying to look at your eye, but I can't. I really didn't mean to.
My point was going to be that I'm more concerned about the, I don't know, infiltration isn't the exact word, of religion into politics, whether it's conservative or liberal or whatever.
Okay.
People constantly referring to biblical values or the right values or the Christian values when there's, as you're saying, a wide spectrum of.
My favorite biblical story. Can I say one? It's the Pharisee and the tax collector. And in this story, are you familiar with it? The Pharisee is a religious man. He stands in front of the front row and he says, Lord, I've done this, I've fasted, I've done all the things you want. And in the back row is the tax collector, or you could call him Columnist, or someone who says, Lord, forgive me, I'm a sinner. To me, I'm concerned when people try to speak for God. To me, that is, it frightens me, you know? And I see this, some of the people in Iran, for example, right? They speak for God, they know, right? Other people, look at Turkey, democratic, secular, but Islamic nation. These are my hope is that that is the model that's followed internationally, or at least in the Muslim world. And as far as we're concerned, I just don't want to speak for the Almighty because I know that I will get hit with lightning as soon as I do. It was very warm and social, and I would hope informative. I was the one doing the talking, but I could learn a lot from the questions that people asked. And as a journalist, that's important to allow people to ask you questions so that you could get a sense of where they're coming from. And questions about dialogue, questions about people working together. These are very, so I'm, in my heart, I would much rather see dialogue than the other, right? And I think to the extent that the Niagara Foundation supports dialogue, it's an important thing. I wanted them to walk away from my talk knowing that I like to listen to my readers, and I want to hear from them what they think about, what they feel, and that that we can speak in terms of, we can analyze politics without becoming personal, and whether that's the politics of a nation or politics of a city. That we must use a framework of analysis that allows us to see things clearly. And if we do that, then that's good. And I had a great time and to see everyone here, and I can't wait to have a wonderful Turkish lunch. I heard from the Turkish restaurant, and as you know, I was there in Turkey and with friends from the Niagara Foundation as well. And I don't want to tell this to my mother or my aunts, but the Turkish food is pretty good. I could say Greek food, Turkish food, kind of. At least it was different, I'm sure maybe my Turkish friends, when they go to Greece, like Greek food for the same reason, because you eat the own food of your country every day. And this was different, and it was wonderful. So I can't wait to go back to Turkey. The only thing I would say about Turkey is I hope Fenerbahce does better this year.